So once again, the trials and glitches as we set off. Our first few days were fraught with motor vehicle problems, and we almost felt as if we could not proceed. But hey, we did. So here is our story as it unfolded. In February, we realized that we had to pre-arrange visas for Uganda, Egypt, and Libya in South Africa before we left. Most countries only want to give visas 3 months prior to your arrival, and we would only be in Egypt in about 5 months' time. So immediately it was problematic. But we started. We sent our passports up to Pretoria to get the Ugandan visas. After that, I wrote a letter to the Egyptian consul explaining the situation, and he agreed to accommodate us. Then it was to get Dave's Schengen visa for Europe via the Italian consulate in Durban. I have a British passport, so I did not need the Schengen visa. And in fact, Dave got his Schengen visa free by virtue of being the spouse of an EU citizen. The lady at the Italian consulate wanted to see our air tickets and to know what date we would arrive. She said she had never heard of someone driving there. Eventually, in exasperation, she just let me write a letter, as I was the British passport holder, saying that we would be driving and we would be there in about 7 months' time, and I would make sure to take my husband out of the EU with me when we left. Next, we had to work on Libya. After attempting to phone a Libyan travel agent in Libya and not being understood, we decided to email them in the hope that someone in the office would understand English. Jackpot! 10 days later, we had a reply from Wing's travel agent in Libya saying that all could be arranged and we could do it en route as long as we gave them 1 month's notice of our intended date of arrival. Also, a Libyan escort would have to meet us at the border and accompany us in our vehicle the entire time we were in Libya. Of course, there was a cost involved, and the agent said that we would have to feed and house him. Packing began in earnest in the last week. Dave arranged for the vehicle windows to be tinted with a plastic film, which would also act as a protection against smash and grab. The vehicle received its last service, almost new tires were fitted, and we had 2 spare tubes, 1 spare tire on a rim and 1 spare tire off a rim. As I told you before, these tires came to good use. We had many punctures on our travels. We had a number of farewell parties, and all our friends clubbed together and gave us a lovely pair of Bushnell 16x50 binoculars. Finally, on Sunday, the 11th of March 2007, we had breakfast with our parents and our daughter, Carmen Jo. She was to handle all our finances while we were away, and without her, we would not have been able to undertake this amazing trip of a lifetime. We left at 10:45 a.m. with 2 friends escorting us up to Hilton on their motorcycles. We were on our way. We stopped in Johannesburg for a couple of days to collect our Egyptian visas. This was not a problem, as we stayed with our son Daryl, who was delighted to spend some precious last days with us before we left on our journey for the rest of the year. Thursday, the 15th of March, we set off from Johannesburg at 6:15 a.m. and headed for the Zanzibar border control into Botswana. All was going well. And then, just as we were reaching the border post, a red light began to flash. It was our alternator warning light. We stopped, and Dave found a cut wire. Our second alternator fan belt had cut this wire. Dave decided it was not an urgent problem, so we proceeded over the border and made our first wild bush camp in Botswana. In the evening, Dave decided to have a bush haircut, and we have a photo of him sitting there having his haircut. Friday morning, when the engine was cool, Dave discovered that alternator number 1 was not charging. But no problem, he said. We still had alternator number 2. Dave bridged the batteries so that alternator number 2 charged all 3 batteries. And we set off towards Francistown and then on to Arapa so that we could take the scenic route up to Nata through the Machadi pans. Burning rubber smell. Oh my goodness, we stopped and discovered that the fan belt driving alternator number 2 had snapped. So now neither alternator was working. But Dave thought that since we had 3 batteries, we would be able to push through to Nata. This scenic route was very slow going and extremely rough. And our troubles weren't over either. Next minute, our fuel tank, on which we had only done 26 kilometers, suddenly dropped to empty. We made an immediate stop, but as there was no evidence of petrol leaking out, Dave decided it was just a faulty petrol gauge. The scenic route droned on, and by 4 p.m. we only looked to be about 1/3 of the way. 6 o'clock and we were 2/3 of the way. When, bang, we got a flat tire. So we set about changing our tire, and at 10 to 7 in fading light, we were finally on our way again. Eventually, due to darkness, we had to put our headlights on to see where we were going. And of course, this drained our batteries. By 8:30 p.m., our headlights were like little candle lights. But thankfully, just around then, we reached the main road and started on the last 30 kilometers to Nata. Our headlights were basically off, and we were getting rather nervous. We stopped without turning off our ignition to start up our petrol generator in the back of the vehicle to try and charge the batteries. However, a few minutes later, Garfield died. All 3 batteries were flat due to the headlights, the electric ignition, and the powerful cooling fan. And of course, no alternators doing any charging. We were now stranded on the side of the road in the pitch dark, and I was scared. Dave said that we would have to sleep right where we were, and I was not happy. Thank heavens, 5 minutes later, someone stopped and offered to tow us into Nata. So finally, at 10:30 p.m., we were in our campsite. Saturday morning, Dave replaced alternator number 2's fan belt. And so we were able to charge our batteries again, and we went into Nata to have our tire repaired. By 11:30, we were on the road to Kasane on the Zambian border. An hour later, rubber smell again. We made an immediate stop to find that our air conditioner fan belt was broken. We did not plan on using the air conditioner, so Dave said we could just carry on. A while later, I was driving, and wham! Our temperature gauge shot to the top, off the scale. "Stop!" Dave screeched. We discovered that the main fan belt had snapped. We just couldn't believe all the issues we were having. Of course, this had to be replaced. So Dave donned his gloves and set about working on a very hot engine in the heat of the day. We were finally on the road again with only an hour to go. Our first fuel tank showed as empty, so I switched over to the rear tank. But guess what? We ground to a halt. After some investigation, Dave worked out that the switch to change tanks was not operating. So Dave had to suck and manually siphon out 20 liters from the rear tank and pour it into the empty front tank so that we could continue. We finally arrived at Kubu Lodge campsite in Kasane at 4 p.m. Sunday morning, Dave found a broken earth wire, which had been the cause of the faulty petrol gauge and the faulty petrol tank switchover switch. We just couldn't believe all the troubles we had had in the first 3 days. Can we even carry on? Yes, of course we can. The rest of Sunday, we relaxed at Kubu Lodge campsite. It was very hot, and periodically we just went and took a dip in their swimming pool to cool off. Dave worked leisurely, but the whole day long, to sort out all the little gremlins that had occurred in the previous 3 days. He got all our switches working, and he removed the faulty alternator so that he could fix it when he got spare parts. I tidied up and sorted things in the inside of Garfield, and then I made a start on my tapestry, because I planned to do a tapestry of the whole map of Africa and our route through it. During the day, we were entertained by a troop of banded mongoose, who obviously live in the campground, and they came through to investigate us. And on the Sunday evening, on our way up to the lodge for a sundowner drink, we stopped to observe a very active army ant colony that were fascinating, to say the least. Monday dawned a cool day, and we spent the day packing up. As Tuesday, we were going to cross with the Gazankula ferry into Zambia. If you found this video interesting, we would so appreciate a thumbs up, and if you could hit the subscribe button, you will keep getting videos made about our trip through Africa and all the interesting places we visited. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye until next time.